अस्सलाम वालेकुम दोस्तों। उम्मीद है कि आप सब खैरियत और आफियत से होंगे। मेरी आज की वीडियो का टॉपिक है आई एम अलाइव। लेकिन वीडियो शुरू करने से पहले मेरी आपसे गुजारिश है, प्लीज़ चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर दें ताकि मेरी आने वाली हर वीडियो का नोटिफिकेशन आप तक पहुंचता रहे। चलिए अपनी वीडियो का आगाज़ करते हैं। आई एम अलाइव इज एन एक्शन एडवेंचर सर्वाइवल गेम सेट इन अ पोस्ट apocalyptic milieu developed by Ubisoft Shanghai and published by Ubisoft. It was released for Xbox 360 in March 2012, for PlayStation 3 via the PlayStation Network in April, and for Microsoft Windows via Steam and Uplay in September. The game takes place 1 year after the event, a cataclysmic disaster that has wiped out most of humanity and reduced cities to rubble. As the game begins, the unnamed protagonist returns to his home in the fictional city of Havington, hoping to find his wife and daughters, whom he has not seen since the disaster. Finding their apartment empty, he sets out to try to find them, but he soon encounters a young girl named Me who is looking for her lost mother. Feeling responsible for Me, the protagonist vows to help find her mother. However, doing so will not be easy as resources are next to impossible to find. The city itself is wrapped in a toxic dust cloud, and murderous gangs of survivors wander the streets looking for easy prey. Under development by Darkworks from 2005 to 2009, with Ubisoft Shanghai eventually taking over and finishing the game. I Am Alive was announced, postponed, and re-announced multiple times over its 7 years development cycle. Originally a first-person game called Life, when Ubisoft Shanghai took over the project, they restarted development from scratch, keeping only the original page and the focus on gameplay elements other than combat and violence. Inspired by films such as The Road and The Book of Lee, the designer wanted players to experience the emotions and moral countries of choosing who lives and who dies. Originally planned as a full retail release, the scope of the game was eventually scaled back to the point where it could be released as a digital-only title. I Am Alive received mixed reviews. Those who like it tended to love its tone, atmosphere, combat and intimidation system, side missions, and the moral component of the gameplay. Many critics also cite the post-apocalyptic world of Havington as being especially well realized and realistic. Criticisms tended to focus on repetitive combat, distracted all routines, and clunky claims mechanics. The game sold well, especially on Xbox Live and the PlayStation Network, topping the charts for each for several weeks after it released and going on to a bed of the top then selling games of 2012 for networks. I Am Alive is an action-adventure survival game. The player controls the unnamed protagonist from a third-person perspective, although the camera switches to first-person when aiming and shooting. The game's most frequently employed mechanics is climbing, which is governed by a stamina meter, whereby physically demanding activities such as jumping or running exert stamina and drain the meter. Once the protagonist's feet are off the ground, everything exerts stamina, even hanging motionlessly. Some action exert more stamina than others. For example, jumping from one beam to another when climbing uses a lot more stamina than swimming across a beam. The stamina meter refills automatically when the player is on solid ground, unless the protagonist is outside that ground level where the dust in the air constantly depletes the stamina meter. Eventually the health meter if the players run out of stamina when climbing. They are allowed a few seconds for a final exertion to try to get to solid ground. However, such exertion results in a piece of stamina meter itself disappearing. This loss can only be restored by using a specific item. To add in climbing, the player can use pittons, which allow the protagonist to rest and recharge his stamina mid-climb. Each piton can only be used in a single location. Once they are placed into a wall, they cannot be removed. Hostile encounters are another major part of the gameplay when the protagonist is confronted by a group of hostiles. There are various strategies available. Depending on how the group act, he can surprise a single enemy with a Machida quick kill, engage in melee combat with a single enemy at a time. Draw his gun and attempt to intimidate the enemies into surrendering, or actually fire his gun, killing one enemy in the hopes the other will surrender. When an enemy has surrendered, the player has the option of either knocking them out or pushing them off a ledge or into a fire. The player must always keep a lookout for the group's leader and attempt to kill him first, as this will often compel the others to surrender. On the other hand, killing a weaker group members will cause the group leaders to immediately attack. If the protagonist aims his guns at enemies for too long without doing anything, they will become convinced he is bluffing and attack. Another component of the game involves collecting resources and supplies scattered throughout the city, including items such as water, foods, gas, medicine, and ammo. These items can be used to replenish the player's health and stamina and often restore the maximum size of the stamina bar. Resources such as gaya and alcohol have a negative effect on the player's stats and are instead intended for use inside missions. As the player encounters non-hostile survivors, they will make requests for various items. When the player gives them the required them, the player will receive a single retry and the survivor will fill some of the game's backstory. The game serves automatically at checkpoints, but if the player dies during combat or climbing, they can use a retry which allows them to return to the specific area with their died without having to go all the way back to the various checkpoint. ओके गाइस, उम्मीद है मेरी आज की वीडियो आपको अच्छी लगे। अगर वीडियो अच्छी लगी है तो प्लीज़ कमेंट्स कर दें, लाइक करें, शेयर करें अपने दोस्तों के साथ। टेक केयर, बाय।